Good morning, friends and neighbors. It is Coffee Pan Dulce time. It is the last Wednesday in August, and once again, we don't have music for 2 weeks in a row. But you're doing a decent job. Like you had some pretty good rhythm there for a white woman. Like it was really going there. But anyway, this is Coffee Pan Dulce, and my two partners in crime are joining me as well, Cano and Barb Bacon. And good morning, everybody. How are y'all?
Good morning. Good morning. I don't know what's going on with this new computer and the music, but yeah, I look. So basically, I'm just dancing by myself. Is that how it is? I saw that on last week's show.
Do you have the original Hunter Biden laptop? Is that what it is?
Yeah. Hey, yes. As a matter of fact, I do. So
I gotta go get my laptop plug.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Hey, so does
mine does. We're just doing a show.
So we both. That's right. That's right. All right.
Well, we keep this party rolling while she's touching her laptop or whatever Gazette does.
That's right. Okay, so welcome everyone to Coffee and Pan Dulce. As Jenny said, this is Coffee and Pan Dulce, and I think she did say it's the last Wednesday.
Last of August, like our bonus show, the 5th.
August. What is it? August 31st? Yep.
It'll be August 31st. By the time
August 31st. That's right. August 31st.
Weekday Cinco of the
that's right
of the month. That's right. Those rare months where we have 5 Wednesdays in the month. Yeah. So
five.
Yeah, special sale. We got guns that look like knives.
Sunday.
That look like guns, and all kinds of other stuff.
Well, as Jenny said, welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, along with Jenny Gunn, Barb Bacon, Mama Ruth. We're Mama Ruthless. Hopefully, she'll be back with us in the fall. And we want to thank everyone who's watching us on Facebook Live, but also those who join us on YouTube and then Facebook later, and the thousands who listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platform. And with that said, I want to thank everyone who's joined us the last 28, 30 days. We've had record-setting, at least I know, viewers and listeners. And that MAGA show is still now, I think it's now up to 15,000 viewers. So, and remarks, as Jenny.
Oh, yeah, they're like the gifts that keep on giving,
Exactly.
And, as the MAGAs are realizing that their grand poopah is going down in flames, which espionage tends to do that. I'm seeing a lot more, not just aggression on our posts. But of course, I'm a big, Instagram and Twitter person myself. And so not only do I post a lot of stuff, I also go on a lot of posts of people that are also influencers and make remarks. And I seem to have really hit a nerve with MAGAs on the governor of California did a little post about DeSantis. And I went on there and said, I was thanking Governor Newsom for saying what he was saying and kind of punching back at the MAGAs and talked. You're a real leader and public servant. Whoa! I got probably about 200 to 300 comments.
Whoa!
I mean, most of them were from troll accounts. So on Instagram, you can make your profile private, and most of these guys have, I don't know, a whopping 40 or 50 followers on these little private accounts and throwing stones at me. And I've got like 14,700 followers on my Instagram account. That's my biggest account. And I laugh about it because here you are, you brave boys are coming on there throwing insults at a trans girl in a public forum, but you don't have your profile public. For what? And the fact
are you really?
Yeah,
they're not.
Most of them come off as bot accounts. It's probably the third or fourth account, and they're just trolls. And most of the stuff they say is nonsensical and stupid.
Yeah,
but
they help our clicks. They help the clicks. So,
well, of course, this has nothing to do with the show. This is my own profile.
Yeah.
And so, but I find it interesting that most of the people that comment, especially on Instagram and somewhat on Twitter, when they say stuff like that, I always go to their profile real quick and see what they post. And of course, well, it's usually nonsensical crap.
No, exactly. And some of the stuff that they posted on ours is also, but I say thank you, bless your heart. Thank you for the
I don't care why you watch. I mean,
exactly. Just watch.
Take notes.
It's like,
Step number one. Step number
it's like
one.
Jenny
Don't
said.
trust a game show host.
Exactly.
Step number two. I don't know. Read a book.
It's like Jenny.
What a
I know
con-
Jenny and I. Well, Jenny and I said that. I know we've gone way off topic, but Jenny and I said this all the time. It's like the ones that say, "Oh, this," but they keep watching. It's like, okay, well, that's all right. Well,
I mean, I do think a lot of people will watch shows on networks that don't necessarily align with their personality. Like a lot of antis will watch.
Sure.
A lot of Democrats, a lot of progressive people will watch Fox News from time to time. Just to see, what's going on. It doesn't take very long before you get nauseated and click it off. But it's at a mild amount of dosages.
Sure.
Sometimes you got to eat the frog too, and it's kind of like, I mean, Fox News isn't healthy like broccoli, but I guess every once you got to have a bad meal to appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, Jenny. And so let's go around the Brady Bunch screen. Introduce yourself and in any imaginary button. But before you do that, Jen, let's salute to our neighbors.
We can do it out of order.
This morning. Yep. And then we do want to thank our Panduce sponsor and supplier, Manolo's Bakery. These are his little chocolate ones. Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue.
That looks good.
Yes, they're very, very good. I can't stop eating them. Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And wherever you are, please visit your Black and brown small businesses or any small business. Please remember to buy local, support local. So now let's go around the Brady Bunch screen. Jenny and then Barb, introduce yourself and any calls or imaginary button.
Well, I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. I'm a local LGBT active. I'm a queer transgender woman. I also support and am part of the board for the National Organization for Women Charlotte. I support Black Lives Matter. I support gun sense laws with Moms Demand Action. In fact, when I marched in the Pride Parade a little over a week ago, we marched with Moms Demand Action. Very much support their cause, very much way past time for gun sense laws. And then I think that's pretty much it. And supporting minority-owned businesses and shopping small, shop local, get away from buying. It's so easy to click and buy on Amazon, but your money will stay local if you buy local. If you buy from a Manolo's, if you buy from a locally owned business, especially an original non-franchised business. There's so many of them here in the greater Charlotte area that are members of our chambers of commerce, including our LGBT chamber. So you should keep that in mind.
Okay, hi. Good morning. I'm Barb Bacon. I'm a community advocate. Lately, I feel like a healthcare advocate here in South Charlotte. Trying to get away from that a little bit, but it doesn't seem to be working too well. My buttons are, once again, gun smart. Get rid of guns. I'm really excited to see that the families from the Uvalde sad situation there, they're really marching for gun control, and they really went after Abbott this weekend.
They were outside of his house, I think.
I was like, good, give it to him. It was finally. It's about time, and the little bit they did for gun control, it just isn't enough. So, gun control and Black Lives Matter. Healthcare for all. I'm not too sure about the Medicare for all. Doesn't seem to be picking up steam. It's going backwards. I think I'm more with Joe Biden on let's expand ACA and do some other things. But other than that, I'll pass it over to you, Christian.
Okay. Thanks, Barb. And I'm Christian Cano, your other co-host. My buttons are Medicare for all or healthcare for all, as Jenny said, as Barb said, and you're right. It seems like, the Medicare for all movement seems to be at a kind of a stalemate right now. Moms Demand Action, gun sense legislation, as Jenny said, we marched with them at the Pride here in Charlotte. And then in my heart, Black Lives Matter on behalf of Joe Oldham, who was a guest of ours who passed away at a very young age last year. Now, Bernie, Baby Trump Pinata and St. Bernie will be leaving us here very soon. And our today's topic, if you did not know, is the Great Resignation and the labor revival. We'll be talking about those two topics. But before, in 30 seconds or less, let's talk about our three current events. There's a term that's being used. It's called restoring. The national media has been talking about this all day long today, that there are companies now that are actually bringing jobs back to America because of the supply chain problems that we had at the beginning of the year. Those who remember that. And so obviously they're bringing back jobs so that way they don't have to deal with supply chain issues moving forward. Next one, Ron DeSantos, he had this the voter registration police or whatever, and they announced voter fraud police. And they announced a couple of weeks ago that they arrested 20 people in the entire state. Yes. Ooh. Well, it turns out now that this big, they made a big hoopla about it, and it turns out it's now kind of imploding in his face because these 20 people were actually felons who thought they could vote, and they actually allowed them to register to vote. And so now it's kind of like egg in his face. And the last one, Lady G, Lindsey Graham, our wonderful senator in our sister state here in sister state, Carolina. I mean, literally, yeah, in South Carolina. She said, he said,
Freudian.
Yes, he said that if Trump is indicted, there will be riots all over the country. So, in his mean voice, there'll be riots all over the country. All right, who wants to comment on any of those in 30 seconds or less? Jen, I see you
grinning.
You want to go first, Jen?
Well, I'll start with our friend Lady Graham to the south of us. And first of all, I can't take that person serious. I mean, my gosh. I mean, what a big old inflammatory queen. I want to see it. I want to see Lady Graham riding on a friggin' pink tank right down the middle of South Carolina, wherever there's a big city in South Carolina, which I don't know if there is, but I really want to see that big old queen leading the charge, and that's about it on that one. The Governor Dick Suckus, he is literally the Michael Dukakis of our time in certain ways. He does some of the most dumbest performative things. Except Dukakis was a Democrat, but he was a goofball. Yeah. And DeSantis is I think he's just really unaware how stupid he really is. And I mean, he didn't even sound stupid. He really is dumber than a box of rocks, and that's the insult to a rocks. At least they've got a purpose.
Restoring?
The restoration, kind of a fake movement that's been going on in corporate America for a while. There's been a lot of foreign investment into building plants in here, and I kind of know a lot about this particular subject. Is that back in the 80s and 90s, you had Honda and Toyota, and to a certain extent Nissan, invest a tremendous amount of money into the United States. And they still do. In fact, the majority of the cars that are sold here are built here. And one of the reasons was to cut down on shipping costs. It really isn't necessarily a supply chain thing, because the supply chain thing really was never an issue once they got the storage lockers on the West Coast there to say, okay, quit scamming people. But long story short, you've seen Brazilian steel manufacturers investing into this country for the last decade. You've seen a lot of German companies starting to build things here in the last 10 or 15 years. And American companies just got the right bribe with all these new manufacturing incentives and these new bills. There's just a lot of money. There's a lot of money out there for them to use from the federal government. And it also makes more sense, because for us to use more green technology, we need to build things here and make sure they're green technology compliant. And the silicon chip, we're the largest silicon chip consumer in the world. Clearly, with that incentive that Joe Biden had with the rebuilding of America, is, and those are good paying jobs. There's a huge incentive to make it here instead of letting Taiwan and China dominate that market. It's actually financial suicide to stay out of that deal. So there's a little bit of truth to it, but there's a lot that's been a growing trend for at least 30 years in certain ways.
All right. And Barb, you want to comment on any of those?
Well, to piggyback on Jenny, from what I was reading about this resurrection of people coming back after the giant sucking sound, if you remember, Rand Paul's father discussing that in his campaigns when he ran for president. And that's exactly what happened. The jobs were just gone, but they've been doing it for a while. And I think the most critical thing is the chips, with China trying to raise its ugly head about Taiwan again. We don't need them cutting off our supply, and because that really kills so many industries. So I guess it's a good thing, but I agree, it's silently been going on as much as they can get away with, and maybe this is the way they take credit for doing things. I don't know, but don't know much about the DeSantis thing, but I don't like him at all. I really think he's just a power grabbing, fame grabbing. I'm happy it blew up in his face. If that's what you're telling me, that makes me smile. So, and what was the other one?
Lindsey Graham saying that it's going to be riots.
Lindsey. Yeah, my boyfriend thought calling him Lady G was hilarious. So I guess I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. So, I had never heard of that term, but quite honest with you, there was a great restoring. And the first thing I thought of was, I hope the people who were so upset about the supply chain concerns at last year and beginning of this year will give the Biden administration credit for jobs that are coming back. So, if you're going to complain to someone because of supply chain issues, now you should say, hey, unemployment is going down, and there's some good things. We have to, as Jenny said, with the good comes the bad, with the bad comes the good. So I agree with that. The DeSantis thing, you almost knew that was going to blow up in his face because he formed this voter police squad, and they started investigating. And the very first press conference they had, they announced 20 arrests out of a state of 30, 40 million, I don't know how many millions people, 20 arrests.
Not quite that many, but it's a lot. Yeah,
And so you were like,
20 people.
Once the people got arrested, you solved the crime, Scooby-Doo. You and those meddling kids.
Yes. So, it turns out most of these people that were arrested for alleged voter fraud, they were former felons. They thought they were eligible to vote, and they actually were allowed to register to vote because they were told they were able to vote. Some were Democrats, some were Republicans. There was like 2 Republicans out of there. But DeSantis made a huge deal about this because, he's all about, the stolen election. So now people are going, this is really kind of not as, anyway, we almost knew that one. But the Senator, the Lady G one, I thought was just the funniest when I saw that he was saying that if, and I keep visualizing his voice, if Trump gets indicted, there will be riots in the street. And exactly kind of like Jenny said, the first thing I kept thinking of was, all right, I guess they're going to get shot in the streets. My
first deal is bring it, Queen. And that way we can get another video of Josh Hawley running the other way too. Cue to the Benny Hill theme song. But by the way, the person who said the giant sucking sound was presidential candidate Ross Perot. The first one to bring that up because George Herbert Walker Bush was a big proponent of NAFTA and the North American Free Trade Act. And Ross Perot was against it, for whatever reason, I think because aliens were reading his thoughts or something like that. Yeah. But I remember the 92 election when he goes, and we'll hear this giant sucking sound, and they're going to take all of our jobs to Juarez, and it's going to be over just like my candidacy.
Well,
thank you, Miss Fletcher. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jenny. Fact checks on the spot. So thank you, Jenny, very much.
I know who Barbara was talking about, but the first person that coined that phrase, and then the Republicans kind of jumped on that after they lost the 92 election, forgetting that they're the ones that
created the
thing about NAFTA. And Newt Gingrich and all the hillbillies from Kentucky started getting all crazy about it. But truthfully, it started with a Republican president actually in the late 80s, early 90s.
Newt, did you hear about Newt Gingrich?
No, what happened?
He still has $4.2 million that he hasn't paid people for his campaign.
Go figure.
Huh. Maybe he could borrow some of the PPP money that the senators and Congress got and pay it off.
Okay, on that note, we're going to take our first break, and then we're going to go into our topic, but I do want to do a fourth one real quickly, when we come back. We'll be right back on Coffee Pan Dulce right after this. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching our Coffee Pan Dulce show every week. Don't forget, you can watch us visually on our video podcast platforms on Facebook and YouTube, but you can also listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all of the other ones that your favorite, whatever your favorite is. Once again, thank you for watching us on Coffee Pan Dulce. We'll dance out. Well, welcome back, and we're going to go directly into our topic, but I just want to see what y'all have to say in 30 seconds or less. For the first time ever, the White House Twitter account, social media account, actually responded back to some of the criticism from MTG and all of those about the student loan thing. Right after he announced the student loan thing on Thursday or whenever it was, MTG, Laura Bobbitt, and all of them immediately came out and said, you're taking money away from free money and this. Well, the White House actually replied back to like 6 congressional members and said, MTG, we didn't have you to pay back the PPE loan of $180,000 you took from the American citizens. And then another one was like $600,000. Yep. And it was like slam.
Well, some were in the millions. So they actually published some senators and some House of Representatives members that were all Republicans that took out PPP loans. Yep. They clearly have no problem with loan forgiveness.
And they were forgiven.
Well, it's socialism for thee.
Yes.
Or not socialism for me, not for thee. And it's again, Republicans love government money.
As long as it's to them.
As long as them and or their large donors can dine at the trough. But the moment homosexuals, people of color, the others, just regular old Americans, anybody else benefits whatsoever. I mean, even planting a tree in a national forest, if they have a gay parade by that tree, and all of a sudden it's socialism. It's just, it's like burn down the cities, batten down the hatches. Oh my gosh, government spends something on somebody other than our rich friend. And it's just so bizarre how they stroked out over this student loan thing we've only been talking about for 10 or 15 years.
Well, it is. I agree with you, Jenny. It is completely hypocritical that we would try to shame people who are looking for student loan relief when companies never pay back the bank bailouts, the PPEs. They never pay that back.
We're talking about trillions of dollars in handouts.
Trillions of dollars. And we have these,
and government-sponsored military socialism.
And these are people who are actually paying taxes.
Yeah, not to even mention the income redistribution socialist handout that Trump gave out for $2 trillion to his 14,000 best friends, the richest people, if not on the planet, at least in this country, that absolutely don't need it. They didn't need it. They didn't put it back in the economy. And they just said, thanks for the $2 trillion gift that we didn't need. And so for us to stroke out about, some people trying to figure out a way to balance life coming out of college or even been out of college for several years and not made a dent on these predatory loans. $10,000 is the least we can do.
Don't you think, because there are people who, understandably, the argument that they're making is, how about the people who didn't take student loans out, or the people who didn't go to college? What can they do? So don't you think maybe a compromise would be, okay, so what we can do to level the playing field, if that is what you're upset about, is allow student loans to be forgiven in bankruptcy. So if you allow student loans to be forgiven in bankruptcy, then they would have the same kind of protection for debt or so forth than anyone else. Student loans is the only loan that you cannot forgive in bankruptcy. Yet, if you didn't go to college and you incurred a bunch of debt, you can get it wiped out with bankruptcy. So I would think that would be a good compromise. You know, I'm not saying people should file bankruptcy. I'm just saying is that if you want it to be equal, then the judge would say, you're right. You really cannot afford this.
So
real quickly, Jen, because we got to get in the,
Yeah, what really needs to happen is we need to address the problem, not just the cure. And so this deal, whereas I applaud President Biden for doing something, what really needs to be addressed, and the Republicans are really trying to distract from this, and it's two things. One, this will lower the incentive for people to go into the military. The military has used the free education as the dangling carrot to poor people, and that's how they've sucked into wars. The second thing is we need to address the predatory nature of the student loan business and irretrievably stupid rising costs for college educations, especially with public universities that we've already paid for that education and paid for those buildings. Why in the hell has tuition in some cases gone up 1,000%, 2,000%, 3,000%? It's not paced with the economy, and you know, whether a private university like a TCU or a Princeton or something that's not a state school, whatever they want to charge and whatever the market will bear, great. But for a publicly owned university, like Texas University, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Colorado,
NC State, UNC here,
all of our fine North Carolina institutions or any state-owned, and especially community colleges. If Republicans and even Democrats to a certain extent want to address this, there's a couple quick fixes. Put back in the next budget the $8 billion that we set aside to pay for all community colleges nationwide. And give everybody a 2 years worth of free education.
Okay, Jen, I got to cut you off so we can go in. But Barb, you want to say something real quickly about student loans, or?
I'm good.
Okay, all right. Okay, I didn't mean to not have you comment on those, but I just thought that was real interesting that the White House replied back. So I was like,
about time.
Yes, it was a really good fight. And they somebody that works at the White House. A 26-year-old Zennial that got in there and lit these people up, and I'm like, I'm here for it. You know,
so Biden had to approve it. And that's what I'm so impressed about. So, hey, and also real quickly, I don't want to get distracted once again, but Jenny, I appreciate the meme Jenny sent me about Laura Boebert, what's her name, that she's all upset about the student loan thing. And what was the meme?
I can tell you what it is.
Tell us what it says.
Directly. In response to Lauren Boebert being upset about college student loan relief, the GED Council of America has agreed to refund her $24.99. So Lauren Boebert attempted to get a GED like 5 different times and got her GED right before she got elected to Congress.
But the $24.95 is funny because that's like what you pay for an online course, and that is
well, it is. It's so it is online earning, but that's the Republicans bringing their best.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I digress on one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
What's her name? Michelle Green.
Bachman?
Huh? What's
Michelle? Where's she?
You mean MTG?
Huh?
MTG?
Yes. What's her name?
Taylor Green. Yep.
Yes. Did you hear what she said about solar power?
No, this is what she said. This is gonna.
It's how can we be for solar power? She wants to have the ability to turn the lights on in her house when the sun goes down. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? I'm reading this and I'm like, someone's got to turn the lights on in her brain, you know? I mean,
that is funny. Okay. That's funny. Jenny, we'll comment on your show on that one because that's actually really, really funny. Okay. Hilarious. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our second break a little early. The second break is probably another PSA that we've been playing on and off. It's for the MPX virus, which is still, the cases have gone down dramatically. Yeah. However, we do want to go ahead and continue to get people aware of that. So we'll be right back on Coffee and Pan Dulce with the PSA for the MPX virus.
Hey, y'all, very important PSA. Monkeypox, a viral infection similar to chickenpox, is on the rise. There's been over 1,500 cases documented in the United States. If you've been exposed to the pox by a lover or by any other intimate contact, make sure you can contact your county official or your personal physician. To learn more, you can contact any of your county health officials and see about a vaccine and or possible mitigating the symptoms. Be safe out there and have a fun summer. Bye.
Thank you, Boo, for that information. Bye. Hi, I'm Christian Cano. Thank you so much for joining us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. And also thank you so much for watching us on Facebook and on YouTube. But also don't forget, you can actually listening to us on your favorite audio podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podcast Chaser, and others. Once again, thank you for so much for watching us and listening to us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. Have a great day. All right, thank you so much. So let's get into our topic halfway through our show. So those were funnier, actually. All right, the Great Resignation and labor revival. So apparently the Great Resignation has occurred before, many times, but this really got a lot of attention in 2021. I'm just going to read from you from the great Google machine what they say the Great Resignation is. It says, the Great Resignation, also known as the Big Quit, and the Great Reshuffle, is an ongoing economic trend in which employees have voluntarily resigned from their jobs en masse beginning in early 2021, causing a wage stagnation and rising cost of living wage loss. All right, so Great Resignation. There was a lot of anecdotal. Is that the correct term? Anecdotal, right? There's a lot of anecdotal cases where you have a baby Z who was making $70,000 a year at Bank of America and then quit and started working for Wells Fargo for $120,000 a year because they were just looking for employees. That's not your average person. Yeah. I think, and Jenny, you can help me with this, the Great Resignation seems to me to really have applied to the service industry, the hospitality industry, right? People who were saying, why am I doing this for pennies on the dollar when I could work at and so forth?
I mean, a lot of what started this, of course, there were so many social movements going on in 2020, obviously, battles about COVID and I think George Floyd and I think it kind of spun off from there. For one, people were saying, well, why do I need to do this when there's so many more social justice things that we need to address? And part of it is paying people livable wages. Yeah. At the heart of all of this, including what originally got the police called on George Floyd, was the fact that he was passing allegedly a counterfeit $20 bill. And so the police were called and sent 6 officers for one guy that was about as threatening and menacing as a ladybug. But 2 is the fact that we have a country that is an embarrassment to people that are to other countries, because most countries, most developed nations that are our peers economically, have living wage laws and have benefit laws, but the living wage movement throughout the world has, wages in or around minimum wages around $19 to low 20s, which is a raw minimum wage for this country. And most states, you need to make between $22 and $32 an hour to even really have a livable wage, based on full-time hours. Here in Charlotte, it's a raw livable wage is about $24. And you're not living fancy at $24 an hour. And so people are going, well, why would I go to a job for $8 an hour, catch COVID and die? And I think partly too, because of the very generous unemployment bonuses that they were giving, people were realizing that we're probably only making $300-400 a week, and they got $600 to $800 unemployment. And they're like, well, this is what it feels like to actually pay my bills. And the light bulb started going off, and started getting the $1,400 checks and the $600 checks and all the things. And I think people, especially the younger generations, faced with a pandemic, a airborne pandemic, and maybe they didn't feel as threatened, but they watched their grandparents die, or an aunt and uncle die, or a favorite teacher die, or somebody close to them, and it got them real. It was a very cold shower for a lot of people in this country. And so you start to look at it and go, yeah, I don't want to go to my McDonald's job and make $9 or $10 an hour and get yelled at for wearing a mask and get this and get that, and then get sick or pass it to a family member. And they started reassessing this. And because they did have the unemployment available, they did have a lot of options available. It gave tens of millions of people that were low wage workers, entry-level workers, a time to shop jobs. And you started seeing more progressive companies like Target, for example, that immediately went to $15 an hour.
Even Walmart went up.
Even Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart begrudgingly up.
And I swore I'd never shop at Walmart. And I was,
So you started seeing people, and you started seeing stories, and then a national group called Fight for 15, which also has state chapters, which I repost a lot of what they repost. I'm saying a raw minimum wage, and I'm talking about not even a livable wage. Every state, the federal minimum wage should be at least $15 an hour, almost immediately. And we have over 20 states that already have an excess of $15 an hour minimum wage anyway. Some are closer to 20. And so
hey, Jen, let me get Barbara to jump in, because I have a...
What is North Carolina's minimum wage now?
It's the same as the federal, I think.
Yeah, and I'm embarrassed. I don't really know. It's like eight something. So one of the things I heard, and the reason I'm going to ask Barbara this, because she lives in an area of town that is mainly more probably Republican, I would guess. I'm generalizing everyone, but I heard a lot on our side of town, and I know, Jenny, where you live, and so you're probably in the middle progressive Republican where Jenny lives. But I heard a lot of people during COVID and the Great Resignation that was occurring from people who had the ability to work at home because of whatever reason, because they had a job that allowed them to, that were complaining because of labor shortages at restaurants, at fast food places, at all this kind of stuff. I heard a lot of people complaining, and they were blaming it on the Great Resignation. People just wanted to stay home and collect unemployment. And I just found it interesting that the people who actually were taking time to stay home were complaining about the other people who wouldn't go to work. So were you hearing that in your neighborhood, Barbara, or what were you okay? Because this is the reason I'm saying that, is because many people on, I would say, our side of town, or in across America, are not really for unions. They don't believe that people should be able to use their power to negotiate their salary. Well, the Great Resignation was actually doing exactly what capitalism and free market wants you to do, and that is shop around, see who will pay you the most. They weren't negotiating with unions. They were saying, I'm sorry, I'm an individual person. I'm going to shop around to see who will pay me more. And that's what they were doing. So they were doing exactly what, capitalist or free market.
And also a very important point, you've got to figure that the social media, especially the talk of the tech and things like that the younger Americans love the TikTok is that it has that social movement power, is that it's a great platform for communicating with your neighbors in mass, especially if you have like followings in the millions, is that you're talking about, hey, I shopped my job and I went from making, $7.25, $8.25 to $15 an hour because Target's starting everybody at 15, and boom, that goes viral. And then another one, another mass employer raises it to 15, or I think Lowe's is at 18. And so they start, it's like a dueling banjos that's very similar to a union, but with technology, instead of having to work for the same company and battle in the same industry, you now can use the social movement of the social medias, and the young people know how to use that a lot better than us three. I'm not calling any of us old, but that group has the most to fight for, and they know how to use those tools. They know how to make those really cute videos that go viral, but it's been a powerful force not only in politics in 2020, but also the George Floyd protests, the Black Lives Matter protests, the wage protests that you're seeing. You're seeing young people working at a McDonald's or a Walmart or whatever in this Fight to 15 movement and saying, we're mad as hell, we're not going to take it anymore. But the 21st century version of it, and they're skewering employers. By the way, the North Carolina minimum wage is the same as the federal one, which is $7.25, which has not changed since 2000. 2008 was the last time the federal government raised the minimum wage, and that's sad.
Yeah. So go ahead, Barbara.
Explain to me then. I remember two couples that I used to go out with often, and they're eating in restaurants and I wasn't, and they were complaining that their favorite restaurant, they waited forever. And I said, well, don't you know why? And so I was trying to explain to them, and I said, they make $2 an hour. That's below the minimum wage. And they said, oh, you're wrong. I said, really?
Yeah, $2 plus tips.
You go there plus tips, yes. And I have a niece that used to infuriate her, but she had such a following. She pays her rent with her tips. That's how good she is. But they were like, you're wrong. I said, no, I'm right. You check it out. And the wife called me and she's like, $2 an hour. I said, so you wonder why they quit when they can go someplace and make $15 an hour and maybe get benefits?
And it was originally, so that server minimum wage comes from the slavery times and just post-slavery times. So most of the time when people were waited on was usually on trains.
That's correct. Yep.
And so in our infinite racist white supremacy wisdom is that the train companies, the travel companies, in the dining cars decided they came up with a federal minimum wage for servers that would be different than other Americans. And I think at the time it was like 2 cents an hour or something like that. It was something like pathetic. And it was way below the standard minimum wage because they were able to get tips. And so those type of jobs where you're waiting on people, gratuity is normal and customary. But most companies now, even with like valets and stuff like that, still pay them a decent hourly wage. Plus,
that's what
tips.
That's what I was going to say. The restaurant doesn't have to pay. The restaurant can pay them whatever they want. So if the restaurant really wanted servers, they could pay them $10 an hour
and some do.
Tips.
Except they're too damn cheap to do it. They're so used to paying $2 an hour. What about the cheapskate that walks away and doesn't even give them a tip? They made $2. Big deal.
If you're a server or a bartender, which still has the $2 an hour.
Back in the olden days, I was
applicable.
$2. I was like, it isn't worth it.
Yeah,
I just went up to my friend, the owner, and said, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
If you work at a high volume bar or table service restaurant, you'll probably, if you're a pretty good server at a high volume place, you're going to probably average.
Yeah.
When I've done those jobs, I've made between $15 and $20 an hour. Most of the time.
Let me read you something. Inflection AR, which is actually a website that kind of caters to HR directors, people in the corporate industry. They had sent an email out in the early of this year after the Great Resignation had been going on. And they were trying to let their HR departments give them aware of the top 10 reasons why people leave their jobs or businesses. Low pay. Oh, sorry about that. Low pay, poor work-life balance, lack of communication, limited opportunities for career growth, micromanagement, low morale, endless red tape, poor management, lack of training, no retirement plan. So those are some of the 10 reasons. Those weren't in any order. Those are the 10 reasons why. So you would think that, I know that's really important information. I know that all of the many decades that I spent in the hospitality business, and I'm sure you guys as well, part of our biggest challenge was retention. It costs more to train someone than it does to keep someone. And so all of our efforts as a leader was to control your human assets to make sure they were okay. And in the hotel business, it's really important because you don't want them to unionize. And so you really want to take care of them, and so we would be constantly asking our employees, how's everything going? Are you okay? Or, are you, and so forth. And so when I heard these restaurants and so forth complaining about some of their employees leaving, the first thing I thought was, and you didn't know they were unhappy? It's
don't talk to your own people.
Exactly.
Yeah. But here's the thing. First of all, they know they're unhappy. They don't give a shit.
Yeah. Good point.
Let's be real. So, one of the reasons that 2020 changed so many things was because we gave people the ability to understand that there's a life outside of work and that you don't have to be paid pathetic wages and that you can actually do something about it. And I think the George Floyd Black Lives Matter movement also showed that you can fight back against tyranny and you can be for social justice. And it was one of the world's biggest in modern history movements that unfolded live during a pandemic and a presidential election year, no less. And I think what it taught people is you can fight for stuff that if you in large organized groups, you can change the world. And these Generation Z saw this, and now you're seeing 2 years later, you're seeing, oh, yeah, I can negotiate my wage. I can fight for my wage. I can self-advocate. Just because I'm young doesn't mean I have to take crap off the system. And you're forcing big corporations like McDonald's, for example, that has all the tools in the world, has all the advantage in the world. They're forcing them to be accountable, which does not hurt. And you're seeing, low wage payers like Starbucks, they don't pay their people crap. And now their stores are unionizing. And now all of a sudden their backsides are tightening up a little bit because they're like, holy crap, now we got to pay them union wages.
Yep.
And it's even happening here in North Carolina. There's several union stores already that voted to unionize. And here's the thing. You stole from your employees for decades.
Yeah.
And you know what? You planted those seeds.
Yep.
And now that they're growing up and they're going, even some of the woke companies like Starbucks are finding out, you're offering the free college and a few other things is great. But if they can't pay their rent, free college ain't going to do them much good. And they got to work 2 part-time jobs plus work at Starbucks full-time just to survive. How the hell are you going to go to college when you've got to work 2 or 3 or 4 jobs.
Yeah.
Jenny,
Or
that's
a
the
roommate. You know,
oh yes.
Art runs with people that are in their 30s and they have roommates because they can't afford the rent. And this is not where they expected to be at their age. And I totally get it that they're angry. I mean, when I was that age, I had a house. Having a house is like a long distance goal for them because they just don't see it happening.
But you can afford a house at $10 an hour in our day.
Yeah, exactly.
$8 an hour, $12 an hour. Because my first house payment and the first house I owned was $308 a month. That wasn't that long ago. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like I'm talking about 1902 or some shit like that. Yeah. I'm talking about I bought my first house in 1988, the same year.
So hey Jen, I want to take our last break, but before we take the last break, the reason I wanted to combine these two topics because this weekend is Labor Day weekend, and this is the weekend that I always chuckle a little bit because this is the weekend you won't hear a peep from Republican candidates. You very rarely will you hear anything. They'll somehow turn it into anything other than labor. But yet you hear them all the time on Memorial Day weekend, but you hear nothing on Labor Day weekend, very rarely. So I encourage everyone to follow Republican candidates and say, why aren't you saying something great about labor? And so I wanted to combine those because you would think the Great Resignation means that we're going to go into an era where these young people who fueled this are now going to realize their voice and want to start possibly forming unions like they didn't before. But before we do that, we're going to take our last break on Coffee and Pan Dulce. And the last break talks about a show that Jenny leads. It's called Two Queers in a Truck. It's every Wednesday at 11:30 in the morning. So if you like what you're hearing, imagine when her hair goes down even further. So we'll do the promo right now for Two Queers in the Truck. We'll be right back.
Up next is Two Queers in a Truck with Jenny and Christian. And hope you guys tune in. We'll see you in about 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Thank you so much. We only have about 13 minutes left. So, one of the things my feeling as a Gen Xer, my professional life, it's not over yet. My professional life, I have never lived in an environment where I could just choose any job. I've always lived under the shadow of baby boomers who are going, well, when they retire, then maybe some of the jobs will pump up, and they never retired.
Yep.
So the Gen Xers, I understand why there's a lot of bitter Gen Xers because Gen Xers were promised, well, we're going to be the next this person, but the baby boomers just hung on a little bit longer. And then the millennials kind of came in and started to kind of push the Gen Xers out. And so when I heard all this Great Resignation, I was like, well, you go, y'all. I'm glad that you actually, because I've never lived in that era where I could just go, you know what, I'm quitting today. And
so a lot of these people in the Great Resignation aren't necessarily going and jumping into management jobs.
That's true.
A lot of it's more lateral movement. So they may switch from a McDonald's to a Lowe's. The Lowe's is starting people at $18 an hour, and then just left a job that's $9 or $10 an hour. And so they're looking at going, well, they're both day shifts or both you're on your feet a lot.
Exactly.
And I don't care if I'm having to haul lumber out to somebody's car or I'm flipping greasy cheeseburgers and French fries. But it doesn't really matter to me because the difference is one's $9 or $10 an hour and one starts at 18 plus benefits. Let me think. I can either work half as much and make the same paycheck, or I can work the full week. I don't make twice as much. And working the same amount of hours for this basically the same type of job. Let me think about that for a second or two. Yes, bye-bye McDonald's, hello Lowe's. And you saw even local business people face with this, and I'm not going to name this business owner's name, but their family does own a convenience store, and they're paying only about $8 an hour. And when COVID hit, they couldn't keep employees, or they said, well, the employees will steal food and stuff like that. And I asked this person that's a political friend of mine, or a friend of a friend, really, well, what do you pay your people? And she told me $8 an hour. I'm like, I looked at her straight deadpan honest, well, you're stealing from your employees. What do you expect? They're only going to take your job because they may need a job for whatever reason. But your competition pays more than that. I mean, at that time, when she was saying that, I looked up one of her major competitors that advertises their wages. At the day shift, the easy shift, they started at $13 an hour in this market. So, and I'm going, if you're not, and I flipped it around and showed this person that, and she was like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's who you're competing against in the marketplace. And whether you like it or not, if you are not going to be competitive, and we're always hear libertarians and Republicans talking about market forces and all blah, 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 blah. So when that gets rammed up their collective asses, because the TikTok teens and the TikTok 20-somethings figured out how to collectively bargain by networking, don't be butthurt. Market forces, you know what? And Jenny, the green wave hit it, and they said, we want better jobs, we want better wages, and we're going to force it. We have the option right now because we can get COVID money. We can sit on it. We can wait it out. You can flip your burgers yourself.
Yeah. So hey, Jen, excellent points. And two quick things. I know you and I have had these conversations before off camera, but I do hope that I don't know we ever will, but I do hope we get out of this crazy belief that everyone is entitled to start a business, and if you start a business, you're owed success. Just because you start a business or whatever it is, doesn't mean that you are entitled to success. You have to work for success, and so whenever I heard all of these restaurants saying, oh, we're not able to, well, you know what, maybe you shouldn't be in business. Maybe that's the free market saying there's other companies that are better, and we need to weed out the weak, And the next thing is, you made a very good point, Jenny. During the many years that I was a consultant in the hotel business, the number one reason that people lost employees at hotels that I went to visit was because the management, if it wasn't a union hotel, unions are different because you're required to have a set schedule. At a non-union hotel, you would have these managers that would put front desk people, bellmen, housekeepers on what they call these switch schedules. So one week they'll be like 7 to 3, 3 to 11, this, and the next week they'll have one day off here, one day off there. The worst thing in the world to do to a person is to not give them stability. And what we would teach them was, if you just have, who would like to work Monday through Friday? I would, because I need to go to church on Sunday. Who wants to work Monday and Tuesday off? I want Monday and Tuesday off because I want to be at my kids' babysitter on Monday and Tuesday. You can have set schedules even for hourly employees. And for some reason, a lot of managers who manage hourly employees don't understand that if you give someone a more set schedule, maybe it can rotate every month, change it every month. People will quit a job because you won't give them a weekend off to spend it with their family. Right. And it made so I hope things like this Great Resignation teaches managers to be more understanding, of people's needs, and so if anything, I do hope this come from it. Jenny, you want to jump in? We only have 5 minutes left.
And it's here's the thing. It's we say this all the time, especially in politics, but business has a lot of the carryovers for politics, and the biggest one is just don't be a dick. It's not real hard.
Exactly.
People act like this is some
Yeah.
I play a smart person on TV, but honestly, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. But just don't be a dick. Don't screw them. And nothing chaps my ass more, and especially when I was talking about this one greedy friend of mine that owns a business, is that while we were having this conversation, we were talking about her nonprofit too, but we were sitting in her house, and her house is about I'm going to say $2 to $3 million house in South Charlotte. It's just absolutely stunning house.
Yeah.
And
Barbara, was that you?
Luxury? No, it was not. No. The Barbara has a very pretty home. It's a very nice home, but this one was a lot newer, a lot bigger.
Okay.
probably would swallow my apartment like 10 times over. Mine would be like a little moon revolving around this thing. They probably had about $100,000 worth of cars sitting out front, and probably about $400,000 worth of custom detailed furniture. As they're telling you, they're paying people $8 an hour and can't find out why they don't stay more than 2 weeks. And they have to run their company themselves. And they also had 2 teenage sons who were of working age. And my next question was, would you pay your boys that? And they're like, absolutely not. I'm like,
okay for everybody but my kids.
And then again, just like the PPP loans versus the student loans, it's okay to pay poverty wages for me, but not for thee. And I'm like,
exactly.
I'm like, you could sell a couple pieces of custom furniture and probably give your people a bonus if you're really that strapped, which they obviously weren't. They were missing in the meal.
No, those are some very good points. I'm very curious to find out over the next decade with the Great Resignation and as Gen Xers start to retire, because we're starting in the next 10 years or so, or even after that. How the millennials, how they handle a lot of these issues, and the early signs seem to be, they seem to be handled a lot better than my generation did, and so I was very impressed by the Great Resignation. That's I was rooting for him. I don't know why. I was rooting for him.
The good thing about it is that these Zennials, these baby Z. They're the find out part of the equation. So, our generation, the baby boomers, we fucked around a long time for about 50 years of out of control republicanism and craziness and kookiness. And the baby Z's, they are the find out part. They're sitting there going, they're on it like a fat kid on a cupcake. They are literally destroying, just as we saw that Generation Z intern there at the White House that was just roasting the Republicans. I mean, and not saying anything nasty, just going, oh, here's Marge the largemouth.
It was the glass houses
$8,000 low, she's against the little 10K thing for individual human beings. But by the way, she's a high wealth family with a $180,000 PPP loan that she didn't need. And so we like, what did Matt Gaetz have a business? Like, I didn't know you could file a business for running underage girls.
Whoa!
What? Like, what are the businesses he in besides being in Congress? Like, I'm he has a lot.
What do they say they got?
Lawyer bills.
They got something working in the back. I forget there's a saying, and
I'm just inquiring what minds want to know. That's the file I want to see.
All right.
Is what
on that
Matt
note,
Gaetz business does he have besides monkey business?
Okay.
Let's ask it.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you, Jenny. As usual, very enlightening and very informative. Barbara's like, oh my.
I will say, at the closing note, I will say one thing. Okay. My biggest hurdle in management, boomer men were a pain in the ass. And trying to get them to change anything was a Herculean feat. Go in and say, I want to have flexible hours because all my ladies work, they have children, they have bus schedules, they have this. I want to go on flexible time, and my department will be the guinea pig. That spread like wildfire. I was surprised at some of the women managers that came out. How can you do this? You're firing people because they're always late. They're late for a really good reason. Especially single mothers. And you think this is wrong? What the hell's the matter with you?
Well, we don't have enough time on the show to cover that.
Yeah, that's got to be enough. That was just like,
yes. Well, Thanks, Barb. And listen, I do want to let everyone know that this week we will be releasing our fall schedule. That means September, October, and November schedules. And we have some great topics coming up. In the month of September, we are going to revisit. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna have to edit that out there. The first show of September is going to be the Dumbest American States Part 2. We'll be taking a look at, is it Florida and Texas still? We'll be taking a look at that one. And then we'll have our Grito Show 2022, which will be celebrating Jesse Sace and doing the Grito, whoever wants to do that competition. And then we'll also be talking about the Is Religion Dumbing Down America Part 2. And then hopefully we'll have Dr. B back on the last show of September, the annual Medicare Advantage show. And then in October, we'll have our Politics show number 4, getting ready for the elections. And then we'll also have a Chancla show, number 4. And then in November, we'll actually have a show of the 2022 election results, because it will be the day after the 2022 elections. So somehow we'll figure out how we're going to do that one. So it may be a midnight taping, or I don't know how that's going to work. And then we'll also have a show, and I think it's going to be an interesting show, the Evangelicals' War on Holidays. You hear every year about the war on Christmas. Well, this year we're going to talk about their war on the holidays, how they don't like you to use the term holidays. So we'll go around the Brady Bunch screen in 30 seconds.
What are we supposed to say if we don't say holidays?
They want you to say Christmas. I always say Happy Holidays, and then if I'm around Christmas, I say Merry Christmas. They want you to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays or something. I don't know. It's something I don't know. Crazy. All right. So Brady Bunch screen. Jenny, you go first. 30 seconds. Where are you going to be in the next week?
Well, happy Festivus to everybody. But anyway, I'll be enjoying my Labor Day, probably enjoying working. But other than that, nothing super special. But in about 30 minutes, you will see the next show drop, and probably pretty low key. It probably took a lot out of me. I can just tell you. Still feeling it.
Okay. I'm going to be home tomorrow. I have a car that's having a problem. Don't know what it is yet. Pray it's nothing big. I'll be in Winston-Salem, and over the weekend is the Round the Crown 10K marathon. So Art's running in that, and that is a really big deal now. It's a really fun marathon, and a lot of people are coming to town for that. So, and then something very quiet for Labor Day. Art's cooking. That's it.
Excellent. And I will be in the great state of West Afghanistan, Texas, this weekend for a family reunion. We're expecting 300 to 400 family members. Can you believe that? It's going to be, yeah, we got a huge. I'll get there. Great. I'll be going through the Great Flood in Mississippi, and all kinds of. It won't be that bad. It'll be great. All right. So we will see you next week, one way or the other. Next week's show, once again, we'll be talking about the dumbest America state, which one it is. All right. So with that said, I think I got the music worked out. Jen, you ready? Tell me if you can hear this.
Let's hear this. No, there's no music whatsoever.
No.
You definitely do not have Hunter Biden's laptop because his is way more powerful than yours. But anyway, y'all be safe.
All right.
We'll bow out to no music again this week.
Yes.
We'll fix it next week.
We'll fix it next week. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, everybody, for watching Coffee and Pan Dulce. Hope you have a safe and productive Labor Day weekend. And watch out for the crazies. Actually, Christian. Bye, y'all.
Bye. See you next week.
Next up, thanks for watching Coffee and Pan Dulce. Next up is Two Queers in a Truck. Stay tuned.